night before, I'll pick up the phone, I'll call, or I'll text to our assistant superintendent. I'll talk with him, I'll talk with our transportation director, and we'll get a game plan together just to make sure everyone has their routes. We all go different directions so that we can cover state roads, we can cover county roads, and we can also cover some of our city streets, just to make sure there's adequate coverage across the district. So we'll talk about that. Typically, there will then be a National Weather Service will host some sort of a webinar of the morning, and we'll get up at 4 o'clock, begin to turn it on, look about 4:30, and then we'll be out and we'll hit the roads. A lot of times I do not drive in four-wheel drive because I want to see what it's like driving without four-wheel drive. And so you try to emulate the best that you can. And as we're out driving, we'll be on the phone, we'll be texting not only to each other, but we'll also be texting and talking to other school districts. So we're talking to Branson, we're talking to Forsyth, we're talking to, if of course the front typically is coming from that direction, we're talking with Reed Spring, we'll be talking with Blue Eye, even further that away, maybe to a Crane or someplace else that away. I have good friends in Cassville, Monette, and so we're talking to the folks and say, what are we going to see coming this direction if it's not already on the ground? And so that is a continued conversation, and then what we try to do is make a decision. We try to have that decision made somewhere in that neighborhood of 5:45 to 6 o'clock in the morning. We would love to call it the night before, but we typically don't run into those scenarios because what we've seen is the majority of our snow that we're getting is of the early morning, and that front is coming through, and so it's a last-minute call. You have to live with this, and this is a part that you have to understand. You've got thick skin. Is whatever decision that I make, there's going to be some people that are ecstatic and they're so happy, and then there's going to be so many people. There's other people that are like, oh my goodness, I could have driven this road and now I've got to find care for my child. And so you put all those together, but ultimately knowing that, guess what, we're going to put our children in a safe environment. And I know that in a car, sometimes it's great to be able to travel in a car. But when you're talking about a large bus that holds 72 kids or possibly 72 kids, there's a lot on the shoulders of those individuals. And buses maneuver a lot different than cars, and a lot different than our pickup trucks do. And so that's taken into consideration. The good part is in that evaluation piece, I think good for me, good for my assistant superintendent, good for my transportation, all of us have driven buses, and all of us have driven buses on snow and ice, and so we kind of understand what it's like to be in the seats of those individuals and those bus drivers. And I wouldn't ever ask them to do something that I would not do myself. Just a little bit different than when I first started is I would pick up the phone and I would have to call 3 or 4 different stations, and so I tried to make sure I got to KTTS first because everybody was listening to KTTS. And so now one of the things that is a big player in this is Kim is also a huge player in this as we do that one call. And so basically all call goes to all of our patrons, parents of our kids. It also sends out an email, and then of course we put it out on social media, and that seems to go, it's a very popular link. I mean, it's a very good like that people like that and they send that on. And so that's a little bit different. Along with, you talked about it's different now than what, I've been in the seat probably 15 years or more as a superintendent. And when I first started, you called off because it was because of snow was on the ground, and that's different because communication's gotten better. I think that our weather has gotten, our ability to identify it has gotten better, and so that has changed as well. Typically, you never called off unless something hit the ground, and so now sometimes we're calling off on a forecast because we don't want to get the students to school and then call, hey, you got to make a plan here at noon, come and get your kid.